The Deathworld classification was a joke, until humans survived their paradise. Planet Dr. Alan Carter stood before the large, semicircular table where 7 alien representatives of the Galactic Council sat watching him. The room was cold, with high ceilings and blue light that made everyone look slightly ill. Alan tried not to fidget as he waited for the council members to finish reading his report. "This is nonsense," said Zexanar finally. The tall, thin alien had gray skin that looked like dried clay. His 4 eyes blinked at different times, making it hard for Alan to know where to look when speaking to him. "Earth cannot possibly be only a Class 8 planet. The data clearly shows Class 12 conditions." Alan took a deep breath. He had expected resistance. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 15 years. In that time, they had gained a reputation as strange creatures from a deadly world that should have killed them long ago. With respect, Council Member Zexnar, the classification system was created without human input. It fails to account for how we evolved to handle Earth's conditions, Alan said, pointing to the holographic display showing Earth's varied ecosystems. "What you call deadly radiation levels from our sun, we call a nice day at the beach." Captain Susan Morris stood slightly behind Alan. As commander of the exploration vessel Horizon, she had seen firsthand how other species reacted to Earth. Most visitors needed special suits just to walk outside. "Dr. Carter makes an excellent point," Susan said, stepping forward. "Just last month, a Merivian diplomat nearly died because he removed his protective gear to feel our rain. To him, water falling from the sky was poison. To us, it's how we water our gardens," the council members whispered among themselves. A short, round alien with purple skin and 6 arms raised one hand. "Even if what you say about natural conditions is true, your planet has dangerous predators," she said. "Large cats that can tear flesh, tiny insects that spread disease, microscopic organisms that kill millions of your people throughout your history." Alan nodded. "Yes, Council Member Vreen, Earth has dangers, but so does every habitable world. The difference is that humans have adapted to our dangers. Our immune systems fight off most diseases. We've learned to avoid predators or defend against them." Zexnar made a sound like stones grinding together. Alan recognized it as laughter, though there was no humor in it. "Perhaps we should put your theories to the test, Dr. Carter," Zexnar said. "The Council has recently discovered a planet designated Eden 9. Every species that has visited it reports it to be perfect, ideal temperature, no dangerous wildlife, plentiful food, a paradise." Alan frowned. In his experience, nothing was ever perfect. "What are you suggesting?" Susan asked, her voice careful and measured. "A simple experiment," Zexnar replied. "If humans truly are as adaptable as you claim, send a team to Eden 9 for 1 standard cycle. If they survive and thrive as you predict, we will reconsider Earth's classification." The other council members nodded in agreement. Alan glanced at Susan, who gave him a slight nod. "We accept your challenge," Alan said. 3 weeks later, the Horizon approached Eden 9. From orbit, the planet looked like a jewel, with vast oceans of deep blue and land masses covered in purple vegetation. Alan stood on the bridge with Susan, both of them watching the main screen with a mixture of excitement and caution. Scans show breathable atmosphere, moderate temperatures, and abundant plant life, reported Officer Daniel Wright from his security station. No signs of large predators or dangerous weather patterns. "Seems too good to be true," Susan said quietly so only Alan could hear. "Exactly what I was thinking," Alan replied. "The Council expects us to fail. They want to prove humans need their dangerous homeworld to survive." Susan smiled. "Then let's prove them wrong." The landing team consisted of 5 people: Dr. Alan Carter, Captain Susan Morris, Lieutenant Laura Hayes, who specialized in botany, Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez, and Dr. Natalie Kim, their medical officer. They sat down in a valley surrounded by crystal-clear lakes and forests of tall purple trees. As they stepped out of the shuttle, they were met with warm, pleasant air that smelled like cinnamon. The gravity was slightly less than Earth's, making walking feel almost like floating. This is beautiful, Laura said, already collecting plant samples. These fruits look edible based on initial scans. High sugar content, no obvious toxins. Paul set up their base camp, unfolding the habitat modules and placing sensor arrays around the perimeter. Weather patterns are stable, no storms on the horizon. Power systems functioning at optimal levels. Dr. Kim ran her medical scanner over each team member. Everyone's vitals are perfect. Oxygen levels in the air are actually better than Earth's. No allergic reactions to local pollen. We could not have asked for better conditions. But Alan wasn't convinced. He walked a short distance from the camp, studying the environment carefully. Something felt wrong, though he couldn't identify what. The planet was too perfect, too welcoming. In his experience, ecosystems had rough edges, challenges, competitions for resources. Find something concerning? Susan asked, joining him. Not yet, Alan admitted. But look at these plants. No thorns, no defensive mechanisms. Every ecosystem I've studied has some form of natural selection, some competition. This place looks like it was designed to be hospitable. Susan nodded. Keep looking. The council wouldn't have issued this challenge if they didn't expect us to fail somehow. As the sun set, casting brilliant orange and pink light across the valley, the team gathered for their first meal on Eden 9. They ate food from their supplies rather than local sources, despite Laura's assurances that the fruits she found were safe. First report goes out tomorrow, Susan said. Let's be thorough but cautious in what we share with the council. That night, as the others slept, Alan stayed awake, watching the unfamiliar stars through the habitat's clear dome. The perfect planet made him uneasy. Earth had taught humans to be suspicious of things that seemed too good to be true. Beneath the beauty of his homeworld lurked countless dangers that had shaped humanity for thousands of years. What dangers might be hiding beneath Eden 9's perfect surface? And were humans ready to face them? The Deathworld classification was a joke until humans survived their paradise planet. The first week on Eden 9 passed without incident. The human team established a routine, expanding their exploration each day while carefully documenting everything. They found Lieutenant Laura Hayes created a garden of local plants near their base camp, growing purple fruits and vegetables that her tests confirmed were safe to eat. These fruits have an amazing nutritional profile, Laura told the others. Over dinner on the 8th day, she held up a round purple fruit about the size of an apple. More protein than beef, vitamins we don't even have names for yet, and they taste like blueberry pie. The team had begun supplementing their Earth rations with local food 3 days ago. So far, no one had experienced any negative effects. If anything, Dr. Natalie Kim noted that everyone seemed healthier. Their skin glowed. Minor aches and pains had disappeared, and they all reported sleeping better than they had in years. The council is not going to like this, Susan said, biting into one of the purple fruits. Juice ran down her chin, and she wiped it away with the back of her hand. We were supposed to struggle here, not thrive. Alan nodded but remained quiet. Despite the apparent paradise they had found, his unease had grown stronger. Each night he reviewed the data they collected, looking for patterns that might explain why such a perfect world had not been colonized already. On the morning of the 10th day, Paul Rodriguez approached Alan with a data pad. The chief engineer looked troubled. I've been monitoring the atmospheric pressure, Paul said, showing Alan a chart. It's rising. Not much, just a few millibars each day, but the trend is clear. Alan studied the chart. Could be seasonal variation. What about temperature? That's the thing, Paul said. Temperature is stable. So is humidity. Only the pressure is changing. Alan frowned. Keep tracking it. Let me know if it passes 5% above baseline. Later that day, Dr. Kim called a meeting. She looked concerned as she displayed her medical findings. Everyone is still healthy, she began, but I'm noticing subtle changes in our blood chemistry. Our bodies are producing more red blood cells, similar to what happens when humans adapt to high altitudes on Earth. The rising atmospheric pressure, Alan suggested. Possibly, Kim agreed, but it's happening faster than normal adaptation, almost as if our bodies knew to prepare before the changes became significant. Susan leaned forward. Could the food be affecting us? Those fruits Laura found? I've run every test I can, Laura said defensively. They're safe. More than safe. They're beneficial. I'm not saying they're poisonous, Susan clarified, but they could be changing us somehow, helping us adapt. Alan considered this, or preparing us for something. That night, Officer Daniel Wright reported the first anomaly in their surroundings. The lakes, which had been crystal clear until now, had developed a slight blue glow after sunset. Bioluminescent microorganisms, Laura suggested when they gathered at the shore to observe the phenomenon. They must activate during the night cycle. Alan took samples of the lake water back to their lab. Under the microscope, he found tiny creatures unlike anything he had seen before. They pulsed with blue light, moving in coordinated patterns rather than randomly. Strange, he muttered to himself. They almost look like they're communicating. The next morning, Alan woke to find Susan already in the lab, reviewing his findings from the night before. "Did you sleep?" he asked her. "Not much," she admitted. "I had vivid dreams. So did Daniel and Natalie. Only Laura and Paul reported sleeping normally." Alan frowned. "What kind of dreams?" "Different for each of us. I dreamed I was swimming in the lake, but I could breathe underwater. Daniel dreamed he was flying over the forests. Natalie dreamed she was one of the plants, with roots in the soil. Those don't sound like bad dreams," Alan said cautiously. "They weren't bad, just intense, too real." Susan rubbed her eyes. "And the strange thing is, I woke up feeling like I had learned something, but I can't remember what." By the end of the second week, the atmospheric pressure had increased by 6%, and everyone had experienced the vivid dreams. The lake water now glowed blue even during the day, and samples showed the microorganisms had multiplied. Laura's garden grew at an impossible rate, with plants reaching maturity in days rather than weeks. Most concerning to Alan was the change in wildlife. When they first arrived, they had documented small, harmless creatures similar to rabbits and birds. Now those animals avoided the human camp and new species had appeared, larger with more complex behaviors. None were threatening, but their sudden emergence was puzzling. During their scheduled communication with the Galactic Council, Alan and Susan carefully edited what they shared. They reported that Eden 9 remained hospitable and the team was in good health. They did not mention the changes they had observed or their growing concerns. "Why are we hiding information?" Laura asked after the transmission ended. "This planet is still paradise compared to Earth." "Because something is happening here that the Council already knows about," Alan replied. "They expected these changes. That's why they challenged us to stay a full cycle." Susan nodded. "I agree. They're waiting for something specific. If we tell them everything, they might find a reason to end our mission early." On the morning of the 18th day, Paul discovered that the soil composition around their camp had changed. Minerals that had been present in trace amounts were now abundant. Metals that should have been deep underground had worked their way to the surface. Dr. Kim ran new medical scans on everyone. Their bodies continued to adapt, with increased lung capacity, enhanced liver function, and changes to their digestive systems that allowed them to process nutrients more efficiently. "We're changing to match the planet," she concluded. "Or maybe the planet is changing to match us. I can't tell which is happening." That evening, as the team ate dinner outside under the 2 moons of Eden 9, Laura suddenly dropped her plate. She was staring at one of her garden plants, which had begun to move its branches independently, almost like limbs. "That's new," she whispered. Alan walked over to examine the plant. As he approached, the branches reached toward him not threateningly but with what seemed like curiosity. "I think," Alan said slowly, "that Eden 9 is waking up, and it finds us interesting." The Deathworld classification was a joke until humans survived their paradise planet. By the beginning of the 4th week on Eden 9, none of the humans could deny that the planet was changing around them. The gentle paradise they had first encountered was transforming into something else. The atmospheric pressure continued to rise, now 15% higher than when they arrived. The air had taken on a sweet smell that reminded Alan of overripe fruit. The temperature swings between day and night grew more extreme, with hot days and cold nights that had not been present during their first weeks. "The communication relay is malfunctioning," Paul reported one morning as the team gathered for breakfast. Their daily meals now consisted entirely of local food, as their Earth supplies had been carefully set aside for emergency use. "I can send basic status updates to the Council, but detailed data transfers are failing." Susan frowned. "Equipment problem or environmental interference?" "Both, I think," Paul replied. "Some components are degrading faster than they should, and there's increasing electromagnetic activity in the atmosphere." Dr. Kim shared her latest medical findings. "Our bodies continue to adapt. Liver efficiency is up 40% from baseline. Lung capacity increased by 30%. Our skin has developed subtle changes in cellular structure that provide better protection from solar radiation." "Are we still human?" Laura asked quietly. She had been the most enthusiastic about the planet initially, but now seemed worried. The moving plants in her garden had continued to develop unusual behaviors, reaching toward the humans whenever they approached. "Yes, we're still human," Kim assured her. "Our bodies are just showing remarkable adaptation capabilities. The changes are all beneficial adjustments to the changing environment." Alan had been analyzing samples from the lakes, which now glowed brightly at all times. "The microorganisms in the water are producing compounds that affect brain chemistry. I believe they're responsible for our vivid dreams. They might also be enhancing our natural adaptation processes." "Is it dangerous?" Daniel asked. The security officer had been patrolling wider areas around the camp, reporting increasingly strange wildlife behavior. "Not directly toxic," Alan said, choosing his words carefully. "But they're affecting us in ways I don't fully understand yet. The compounds are similar to neurotransmitters in the human brain, but more complex." That afternoon, the first major storm hit. The sky darkened rapidly as clouds formed from nowhere. Wind whipped through the camp, bending trees that had seemed immovable just days before. Lightning cracked across the sky in patterns that looked almost deliberate, like writing in an unknown language. The humans retreated to their habitat modules, which shook under the force of the wind. Rain fell in thick drops that sizzled when they hit the ground, leaving small craters in the soil. "This is acid rain," Paul said, checking readings from their external sensors. "pH level 4.2. Strong enough to damage equipment but not immediately dangerous to our structures." "Or to us," Alan added, looking at his arm where rain had touched his skin before he made it inside. There was no burn, not even redness. "Our skin should be much more sensitive to acid at that level." Dr. Kim scanned his arm. "Your epidermis has thickened and changed composition. It's neutralizing the acid on contact." The storm raged for 6 hours, then stopped as suddenly as it had begun. When the team emerged from their shelter, they found the landscape altered. New rock formations had pushed up from the ground. The lakes had expanded, connecting in places to form small rivers. The purple vegetation had grown denser, taller, with new shapes and structures. Most concerning was what Daniel discovered during his security sweep: evidence of previous visitors. Half buried in newly exposed soil lay pieces of equipment, not of human design. Alien tools, fragments of shelter materials, remains of technology from at least 3 different species. "They were here before us," Daniel said when the team gathered to examine his findings. "And they didn't leave." Alan studied one of the artifacts, a device that resembled a data recorder. Its outer casing had been partially dissolved by the same processes that were altering the landscape. "I think I understand what's happening," he said slowly. Eden 9 isn't just a planet. It's a complex organism, or maybe a colony of organisms, working together. It cycles through phases. The paradise phase attracts visitors like flowers attract bees, or like Venus flytraps attract insects, Susan added grimly. "Exactly," Alan nodded. "Once visitors are established, the planet begins its next phase. It creates ideal conditions for the specific biology of its visitors, encouraging them to stay, to consume local resources, to integrate with the environment. Then what? Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know for certain, Alan admitted. But based on these remains, the final phase isn't good for the visitors. They either die or are absorbed somehow into the planet's ecosystem. That night, no one slept well, even without the influence of the dreaming compounds from the lakes. The habitat modules felt less secure now that they understood what they were facing. Outside, new sounds filled the darkness. Rustling movements, clicks and calls from unknown creatures, the creaking of growing plants. In the morning, Susan called a meeting. We have two options, she said, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes. We can try to leave immediately, or we can continue the mission. The shuttle might not function properly with the atmospheric changes, Paul warned, and even if we get to orbit, the horizon has been there for weeks. Its systems could be compromised too. If we leave, we fail the Council's challenge, Daniel pointed out. Earth remains classified as a death world. Better than not returning. At all, Laura countered. Dr. Kim had been quiet, reviewing medical data on her tablet. Now she looked up. I don't think the planet is trying to kill us, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. The adaptations our bodies are making aren't random, she continued. They're perfectly calibrated responses to each environmental change. Almost as if the planet is testing us, Alan finished her thought. Pushing us to see how we respond, how we adapt. Susan considered this. The Council must have known. They've sent other species here before, and those species failed the test. They expected us to fail too. But they didn't account for one thing, Alan said, a slow smile spreading across his face despite the situation. We come from Earth, a planet that has been testing humans this way for thousands of years. We evolved through ice ages, droughts, floods, pandemics, and countless environmental shifts. Adaptation isn't just something we do, it's who we are. Susan nodded. Decision made. We stay, we complete the mission. We show the Council what humans from a death world can really do. Outside, the sky darkened again as another storm approached. But this time, the humans didn't retreat to their shelter. Instead, they walked out to meet it, faces turned up to the acid rain, bodies ready to adapt to whatever Eden 9 had planned next. The death world classification was a joke, until humans survived their paradise. Planet 3 months passed on Eden 9, and paradise was nothing but a distant memory. The planet had transformed completely from the gentle world they had first encountered. The humans had adapted along with it, growing stronger and more resilient with each new challenge. The atmospheric pressure had stabilized at twice Earth normal. Temperatures now swung wildly between scorching days that reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit and freezing nights that plunged to -10. Acid rain fell regularly, and electrical storms lit up the sky almost nightly. The once crystal lakes had turned, dark purple filled with complex compounds that would kill most species but which the humans now drank without harm. Their bodies had changed to process the toxins, breaking them down and using them for energy. Laura had identified the mechanism in their livers that allowed this adaptation. It was present in all humans but usually dormant. A leftover from Earth's ancient past when humans had evolved through periods of environmental stress. The team's shelter had been rebuilt 3 times. Currently, they lived in structures half buried, in the ground, using rocks and native plant material that Paul had discovered could be woven into tough, flexible sheets. The design was based on ancient Earth shelters from harsh desert regions, modified with modern understanding of structural engineering. Another group of predators circling east of camp, Daniel reported one morning as the team gathered to plan their day. The security officer looked different now, leaner, his movements precise and efficient. All of them had changed physically. Their muscles were denser, their skin tougher, their senses sharper. The planet's wildlife had changed too. New species had emerged from hibernation, or evolved rapidly from smaller creatures. Large predators now hunted in the forests, with teeth and claws designed to tear through tough materials. Flying creatures with leathery wings and sharp beaks dove from the sky without warning. Even the plants had developed defensive mechanisms: thorns, toxic sprays, strangling vines. "I'll adjust the perimeter defenses," Paul said. The engineer had created a system of alarms and barriers using salvaged equipment and native materials. His hands, once soft from years of working with delicate technology, were now calloused and strong. Susan nodded. "Laura, how is the new crop coming along?" Laura had long abandoned her original garden. Now she cultivated edible plants in protected areas throughout their territory. The plants were almost unrecognizable from the gentle fruits they had first discovered, having developed hard outer shells to protect the nutritious interiors from Eden 9's newly hostile environment. "Ready to harvest in 2 days," Laura reported. She had become an expert in the planet's rapidly evolving ecology, learning which changes were beneficial and which were threats. Dr. Kim continued to monitor their physical changes. "Our cellular regeneration has improved again," she told the group. "Wounds heal 60% faster than Earth normal now. Our bone density has increased by 25%. Most notably, our brain chemistry has adapted to process the compounds from the lakes, using them to enhance cognitive function rather than being harmed by them." Alan had been studying records from their earliest days on Eden 9, comparing them with current data. "The cycle is nearly complete," he said. "Based on planetary rotation and orbital patterns, we've been here for approximately 1/3 of a standard cycle. The rate of change is slowing, which suggests the planet is reaching its true stable state." Susan considered this information. "The Council never expected us to make it this far. They thought we would either flee or die during the transition from paradise to the current state. Like the others did," Daniel added, gesturing toward the collection of alien artifacts they had recovered over the months. They had found evidence of at least 7 previous expeditions, none of which had survived the planet's full transformation. "Because they came from gentle worlds," Alan explained. "Species that evolved in stable, favorable conditions. They had no natural mechanisms for adaptation." A sudden alarm sounded, and Daniel rushed to check the perimeter sensors. "Large group approaching from the south," he called out. "Not the usual predators. Something new." The team quickly took defensive positions. Over the months, they had developed effective strategies for dealing with Eden 9's wildlife. Each person had specific responsibilities and specialized tools crafted from local materials. They moved with practiced coordination, no wasted motion or energy. The creatures that emerged from the dense vegetation were unlike anything they had seen before. They walked on 6 legs with joints that bent in multiple directions. Their bodies were covered in plates that shifted like armor. Most concerning were their heads. Large, with multiple eyes and sensing organs that suggested high intelligence. "They're coordinating," Daniel warned as the creatures spread out in a clearly strategic pattern. Not just pack behavior, actual tactics. For a tense moment, humans and aliens observed each other. Then the leader of the creatures made a sound, a miasam, complex series of clicks and whistles, and the entire group retreated back into the forest. "They're learning about us," Alan said quietly. "Studying our defenses. They'll be back." That night, the most violent storm yet struck the planet. Winds strong enough to uproot trees battered their shelter. Lightning struck repeatedly around them, setting fires that were immediately extinguished by torrential rain. The ground shook with what felt like seismic activity. Inside their reinforced shelter, the humans waited out the storm, taking shifts to monitor their instruments and repair damage. None showed fear. They had faced worse storms, worse threats, worse conditions. Each challenge had made them stronger, more resourceful, more determined. "We need to contact the Council," Susan said as they gathered the next morning to assess damage and plan repairs. "The communication system is functioning at minimal capacity, but we should be able to send a basic update." Paul nodded. "I can boost the signal during the next atmospheric clearing. We'll have about 10 minutes to transmit." When the opportunity came, Susan sent their message. It was brief, but clear. Humans thriving on Eden 9. Full adaptation to all. Planetary changes. Continuing mission as planned. Expect successful completion of full cycle. The response from the Council came hours later, weak and fragmented. Only a few words were clear. Impossible. No species has return immediately. Dangerous phase beginning. Alan laughed when Susan shared the message. "They still don't understand what we are," he said. "They think because they're gentle, worlds didn't prepare them for hardship. No one could possibly survive here." "Should we consider returning?" Laura asked. "If an even more dangerous phase is beginning?" Susan looked at each member of her team. They had been through so much together, faced challenges that would have broken most humans, let alone aliens from peaceful worlds. But they had not just survived. They had thrived. "We came here to prove something," she said firmly. "Not just to the Council, but to ourselves. We're staying." That night, as a new kind of aurora painted the sky in shifting patterns of green and blue, the humans of Eden 9 planned for whatever the planet would throw at them next. They were no longer visitors or observers. They were becoming part of this world, shaping it even as it shaped them. And somewhere deep beneath the surface, the planet itself seemed to respond to their determination, as if recognizing worthy adversaries, or perhaps, at last, worthy partners. The Deathworld classification was a joke, until humans survived their paradise planet. 1 full year had passed since the humans first set foot on Eden 9. The final weeks of their challenge approached, and the planet had one last surprise for them. The intense storms and extreme conditions of recent months began to fade. Temperatures moderated, becoming more stable. The acid rain stopped completely. Plants that had developed vicious thorns and toxins began to produce new growth without these defensive features. Even the predatory creatures became less aggressive, retreating deeper into the forests and mountains. "It's returning to paradise," Laura said as she examined new growth on plants near their camp. "The cycle is completing," Alan agreed. His studies had confirmed what they all suspected. Eden 9 has a natural cycle. It begins as paradise, transforms into a death world that tests any visitors to their limits, then gradually returns to paradise again. We've nearly witnessed a complete cycle. The humans watched this transformation with mixed feelings. They had adapted to the harsh conditions, their bodies and minds changing to meet each challenge. Now, as the planet softened around them, they found themselves almost missing the difficulties they had overcome. "The Council ship will arrive in 3 days," Susan reminded them during their morning meeting. Their communication systems had been restored as the electromagnetic interference faded, allowing regular contact with the galactic authorities. The Council's messages had changed over time, from disbelief to cautious respect. No species had ever survived a full cycle on Eden 9. The humans would be the first, and this fact had profound implications for their standing in the galactic community. "They're sending a full observation team," Susan continued. "Scientists, diplomats, representatives from multiple species. This is no longer just about Earth's classification. They want to understand how we succeeded where others failed." On the morning the Council ship was scheduled to arrive, the humans gathered outside their camp. They looked different from when they had first landed on Eden 9. Their bodies were leaner, stronger, their movements more efficient. Their eyes had adapted to see better in low light. Their skin had darkened slightly to protect against radiation. Even their posture had changed, more alert and ready to respond to threats. But the biggest changes were invisible. Their internal organs had adapted, becoming more efficient. Their immune systems had strengthened. Their brains had developed new pathways to process information more quickly. These changes would not reverse when they left Eden 9. They had become permanently enhanced by their year on the Death World. The Council ship descended through the atmosphere, much larger than the horizon that had brought the humans to this planet. It landed in a clearing near the human camp, and a delegation of aliens emerged, led by Zexnar from the Galactic Classification Committee. The tall gray alien approached Susan cautiously, all four eyes blinking rapidly with what might have been nervousness. "Captain Morris," he said, his voice the same grinding sound she remembered from their meeting a year ago. "You and your team have accomplished something unprecedented." Susan nodded, but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "We have monitored your progress as best we could," Zexnar said, "though much of your data was lost during the planet's transitional phase. We would like to understand how you survived." "We would be happy to share our findings," Susan replied. "But first, I believe we had an agreement. Earth's classification was to be reconsidered if we survived one standard cycle on Eden 9. "Yes," Zexnar admitted, "though the situation has become more complex. You see, we must now consider the possibility that Earth's classification was not high enough." The humans exchanged surprised looks. "Not high enough?" Alan repeated. A smaller alien stepped forward, one of the purple, six-armed scientists they had met at the council headquarters. "Eden 9 is classified as a Class 15 Deathworld at its most extreme phase," she explained. "No species has ever survived that phase. The fact that humans not only survived but adapted suggests that Earth may be more challenging than we realized. We propose reclassifying Earth as a Class 14 world," Zexnar said. "This would recognize the extraordinary adaptability of humans and the unique evolutionary pressures of your homeworld." Susan considered this. "And how would this reclassification affect Earth's standing in the galactic community?" "It would change significantly," Zexnar admitted. "Humans would be recognized as specialists in survival and adaptation. Your expertise would be sought for dangerous missions, exploration of harsh environments, emergency response to disasters. Your status would shift from primitive curiosities to valued consultants." The council delegation spent the next several days studying the human camp and collecting data on how the team had survived. They examined the shelters, the tools created from local materials, the food sources they had developed. They took medical readings of the humans, marveling at the adaptations their bodies had made. Most impressive to the aliens was the human psychological resilience. Where other species had surrendered to despair when Eden 9 transformed from paradise to nightmare, the humans had approached each new challenge with determination and even humor. "Your brains are wired differently," one of the alien scientists told Dr. Kim. "You expect hardship, you prepare for it. When it arrives, you see it as a problem to solve rather than a reason to give up." "That's what Earth taught us," Kim replied. "Our planet has never been stable or safe. We evolved through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor strikes, pandemics. Humans who could adapt survived. Those who couldn't died out. We are the descendants of the survivors." On their final day on Eden 9, as the humans prepared to board the council ship that would take them home, Alan took a last walk around the area that had been their home for a year. The planet had almost completely returned to its paradise state. The lakes were clear again, the plants gentle and welcoming, the air sweet and mild. Yet he could still see evidence of the harsher phase. Scars on tree trunks, rock formations created by violent geological activity, subtle changes in the ecosystem that would remain until the next cycle began. Eden 9 had changed them, but they had also changed Eden 9. Their presence had affected its cycle, introducing new variables, new possibilities. Just as Earth had shaped humanity, humans had now left their mark on another world. Susan joined him as he stood looking out over the valley. "Ready to go home?" she asked. Alan nodded. "Though Earth will seem different now, easier in some ways." "We are different," Susan replied. "Stronger. The Council doesn't understand what that means yet." "They will," Alan said. "Once they realize that a species evolved on a death world, adapted to constant change and challenge, isn't just surviving in the galaxy, we're just getting started." As they walked back to the ship together, Eden 9's twin suns rose over the horizon, bathing the paradise world in golden light. In the forests and lakes around them, life continued its eternal cycle of adaptation and change. And on a planet far away, Earth continued to spin, Harsh and beautiful, the crucible that had forged humanity into something the galaxy had never seen before, and would never underestimate again.